All right, day 6 of the Anthony T.T. Jordan trial. Started out with today. Let's get back into yesterday. How about that Chiefs? They got that ass whooped, good beat down. Anyway, so let's go to today's testimony. Day 6 leads off with Donte Jacobs, and Donte is the prisoner processing clerk that worked in cahoots with Gloria Ward to get information. And it was pretty much what I laid out yesterday or the last update. She provided information on Anthony Blinky Clark, Terrell Beasley, Hellrell, Anthony Anderson, Spree, Robert Parker, Parker G, and Mikkel Gridiron Yellow Mac. So he was helping her gather information on all these people. The word is they're all from the Blue Myers. We are getting comments that certain people weren't from that area, don't know what to say. I think one of the things too was if you were even associated with who Didi had, you might have been on the list. But they use the term the Blue Meyer boys all the time, and the Blue Myers comes up. So again, if you're confused with areas, I hear you. So he went through, he's was on the police department was employed by the police department in prisoner processing from 2009 to 2016. And they went into his cooperation and that he understands he's got to tell the truth and all that. And he was given immunity. So, and he just went on to say how it would go down with him and through text messaging. And he got pics and printouts and DOR stuff and passed it on to Gloria. And then about a year after he started it, I guess he got a conscience and said, a lot of people are dying. I better stop doing this. So who knows? You know how that goes, John, right?
Oh, yeah.
After a couple 5 killings, you're just like, maybe I'll stop.
It's starting to bother me.
Anyway, a couple of things I missed in the earlier testimony with Gloria is, they were running plates and everything, so you didn't know what they were to. But evident, and then just figuring it out, one of the plates she had him run was one of the plates that was seized in the search warrant, I believe on Sacramento, from one of those cars. That was one of the plates that she had ran, and it was for an Infiniti. It was stolen from a gray Infiniti, and then when he ran it, it showed that it was a gray Infiniti and that it wasn't stolen. So obviously that helps. And then the other thing she ran TT, or he ran TT at one point to see if he was wanted, and that was towards the end. And but that's basically what he testified to, just the pictures and the going on. And then the defense, went through some of the things that, tried to discredit him, and there's really nothing to discredit when the evidence is the text messaging and the pictures. And so that was that. And, the next witness was Sierra Blanchard, and Sierra was the gal or the driver of the car when Blinky got shot up on Colt Brilliant. And she just testified that, she saw the car pull up, saw the gun, and she got down, and then she heard the gunshots, and she was Blinky. She had 2 children by Blinky. And when Blinky she had never went and seen him in prison. But when he got out, he was saying how he wanted to, help the kids and do right. And so she picked him up on that day because he had a job interview. And that's what she was saying. She wanted to help him out. And she said she didn't have much confidence. But she picked him up. And that incident happened while she was during that. Now we get to, and this is another one of them hang with me's. Brandon Burk, the FBI from the FBI, came on. He's got 17 years with the FBI, and what he's going to do here is that now they're going to have we heard about all the horrific gunfire that went on during this thing. Now we're going to hear a little bit about the dope case that ties together. It wasn't done all at the same time. They tie all this stuff together. So Brandon's been on 17 years, did some time in the Army. He was in St. Louis from 2008 to 2016. and he was part of a task five. They called it the 5 Squad, and it was a joint task force that has local law enforcement officers in it from different municipalities and the city of St. Louis and the county, and they also work with DEA and ATF and the FBI. Worked in conjunction with each other, and the Homeland Security, all of them. And what they were tasked with doing as a group was transnational crimes, which includes drug dealing, which goes across the borders, violent crime, and drug trafficking. And their main goal was to dismantle drug organizations from the ground level all the way to the top. Follow it to Mexico or wherever it leads you. That was their main goal. So they started a case in 2011 to 2013 that did involve Anthony T.T. Jordan. And they were just getting information. And when you're working on a lot of those things, you can get information, but you got to go out and corroborate it to see if the guy's good for what they're telling you he's good for. So they did that. And they tried to develop some CIs. They did some pen registers, some physical surveillance. They tried to do this. They do undercover buys and stuff like that. And they actually did put a pole camera up in the 4200 block of Sacramento, but TT spotted it and pointed at it. And so they said, no, that's not good. So they kind of let that go cold and moved on to another organization that they linked into. And they have no idea that this has anything to do with TT. They just moved on to another case. And it was the wire case of a gentleman by the name of Laron Coleman. And they were identifying some street deals that were going on. And during that, during a wire, they went into what you do during a wire. And, you basically you have pertinent calls and impertinent calls. If you're listening to the wire for more than a minute, you determine, well, they're just bullshitting about normal stuff. You don't listen anymore. You can listen a little longer if okay, this is one of his associates. So sooner or later, they're going to talk about dope. So you may listen a little longer. People such as attorneys, if an attorney calls, you got to turn it off right away. They just went through stuff like that. They also went through, when you're working these, is that when you start on one phone and you identify somebody, they call it a spin off, or if a guy drops his phone, you will spin off to another phone number. You can't just say, okay, we know he's using this. You're not writing a wire for a person. You have to write it for a device. So as they drop their phones or they move or they identify somebody else that may be a supplier, which they did here, you go ahead and write for that phone. And in August of 2014, they identified during their Laron Coleman wire, they identified Adrian Lemons as Laron's main supplier. So they went ahead and spun that investigation to Lemons' phone, and they were on both phones in August of 2014. So, and one of the things they were talking about is you're listening for code words, you're listening for certain communications that may sound suspicious, and what they were getting at this time is Lemons is calling several people, telling them to be ready, get your stuff ready, which they took to mean, something's about to happen. So they go up on numerous surveillances throughout, people they've identified within this drug dealing organization, and they sent several people out, got help from numerous people, and they're following a lot of people around. Well, where they end up is 7115 Idlewood, and that's in Jennings. And what they're watching a bunch of cars pull up and go by. Well, when you're working these investigations, you can't just go kick the door in because it ends the investigation. So you have to use strategic plans or strategic maneuvers to keep the wire going, but try to verify what you're doing. So what they did was a car pulled up, a black Chevy truck pulled up. Later, they figured out that it was a guy by the name of Dwayne Rainey. And Dwayne Rainey pulls up, stays in there for 10, 15 minutes. Well, this is when they decided to use what they call a wall-off stop. And what you're trying to do is stop a guy away from a scene and let the case remain running. But you're going to try to get some drugs or something from the guy that pulls away. Or sometimes you just want to ID a guy, say, who is this guy? But they did that, and they had a county officer pull Mr. Rainey over as he left the location a little bit away, and he pulls over. County guy gets his license, and then goes back to start running him. John, any idea what he might have done?
He just running of his own.
Not today, motherfuckers. So he bolted, and so they find his car a little bit away from there. He's gone. But what he does do is he calls Lemons, and he calls Lemons, and he's out of breath. He's obviously either just got done running or still running. This explains that he threw the dope out, blah blah, whatever else happens. And then they look in the car, and they one of the things they found was a drug ledger, and within the drug ledger was the initials of TT with numbers next to it, similar to it's how they keep track of who owes what, but so they found that. Let's see. And at the time, they said the kilo was going for about $30K per. TT's in the ledgers. Many other customers are in the ledger, and names and math are next to them all. The ledger was seized, and the wire continues. And so the next one they do is the same kind of thing happens around just before November the 10th. We got a load coming. The whole bit, so they again start doing all their surveillance, getting everything together, and they get to the house at 824 McLaren in the city, and they watch all this go down, and then they get a call from a guy by the name of Demetrius O'Neill and Lemons, and Demetrius O'Neill shows up shortly after the phone call, and they decide to do another wall-off stop. And so Officer Todd Miller, who's from the St. Louis Police Department, but he's there as a task force officer, but they put him in uniform in a marked car to help out if they ever needed to stop him. So they follow him away. He goes to a gas station, comes back out. Well, they don't have to try to pull him over because now he's coming out of the gas station. They grab him. He said that ain't his car. They know it's his car. And then the car was about a half a kilo. Not sure exactly what they did with Demetrius, but that's what happened. So after that, they identify, as they keep going, they identify a couple Mexicans, one by the name of Juan Garza and a guy by the name of Guerrero. And that leads them to their main source over in Mexico, a guy by the name of Jose Velasquez. And he was in communications with Lemons. So everything's tied together as far as, they've taken it from the street level. Now they're over in Mexico, and they've got things happening in this case. And then in December of 2014, Burke gets a call from a fellow FBI agent that's in McAllen, Texas. And McAllen, Texas is right on the border, just very famous for the amounts of dope that comes through there and seized and passed along and clues passed in to the city where the destination of the dope might be. So this FBI agent tells Burke that they've identified a courier that's running stuff to St. Louis, and he cooperates. They're using a tractor trailer, and they're putting the drugs in the rear differential of the tractor trailer. What a differential is, I don't know. How much dope you can fit in, I don't know, but they were throwing dope in there. What's
the differential?
Who gives? It makes no differential. So, but they were taking they used strings to pull it out. So obviously there's a lot of space in there, and they had sticks to pull it out. So So what they do after that is they through Google Maps is they have that driver identify a location in St. Louis where he was dropping off the drugs, and it was 6327 Theodosia. It was an old car lot / mechanic place, and that's where he would bring the drugs. So now we're still in McAllen, Texas, and now they get a call that this cooperator in McAllen, Texas, saying that a driver is coming to pick up money. It's not him, but it's another driver. So they set up on Garza and follow him around all day, and they follow him, and he meets the driver. There's a transaction of some sort, and they follow the person who they gave the money to on I-55 southbound, pull them over, and they get $130K. Shortly thereafter, the McAllen truck is they got that. Then McAllen calls and says, okay, this guy actually went and got a shipment. Well, they take the shipment out of the rear differential, but they send the truck through. And when the truck gets through here, they go ahead and load it with fake dope made out of, I think it was Bisquick or something, wrapped up. They threw some in the differential, and they had it pull into Theodosia. Well, in the meantime, they also wrote up an anticipatory search warrant at Theodosia. Well, while this is all going on, and this is shortly after, this is all within like February. And so when that truck's supposed to come, they also put Garza and another guy by the name of Fernando Cantu, who's now running with Garza this particular day. And they're under surveillance too. And they follow them to Theodosia prior to the truck arriving, and they drop off 2 bags and leave, and they're gone. And so the truck pulls in, gets in there, they do the search warrant, and there's a guy by the name of Clarence Miller as a mechanic. He was the one that unloaded it. But they end up doing the search warrant, and in those 2 bags, obviously there was no dope because they already took it all. But in those 2 bags was $570,000. And so then they still have Garza and Cantu under surveillance. They take them off, and they are the main people at Idlewood. So they have a Spanish FBI speaking officer. He gets a consent to search from Garza at the location there, and then there they seize an additional $305,000. So that's how that goes. Well, and then I'll skip ahead a little bit, but then we'll go back. But Lemons is eventually arrested on January 13th, 2016. They did 7 search warrants relative to this. And at his main home, they found $245,000 in a safe, a handgun. But they also found a gym bag filled with drug ledgers that also had TT within those drug ledgers. So now we're going to go back a little bit to the middle of 2015. So you have both these investigations going on with all these murders happening in the city, and you got the drug case going on. Well, they get an informant that puts it all together. And now the FBI and their task force, as well as another task force with the DEA and St. Louis Police Department. It's the same kind of task force, but it's run out of DEA. So, and then the St. Louis Police Department gets highly involved. So, so that starts to happen. They're putting everything together, and eventually, they do some search warrants, and that drug case is going on. But now the FBI and the St. Louis Police Department meet because they're getting information. The police department and that task force is getting information that ties into this case, and they tie it together. And an informant does it, and he puts Lemons and TT dealing dope together and lays out a bunch of other stuff, which leads to the arrest of the later arrest of Anthony Jordan. And at the time they decided to do the arrest, they were following him around. They knew he had a place on Brighton Street in St. Charles, Missouri. They go to arrest him. They watch him pull up in a green Pontiac. And when they go to arrest him, he locks himself in. There's 2 children in there. He calls his attorney. His attorney calls a U.S. attorney, and the U.S. attorney is calling the law enforcement on the scene. So there's a communication going on, and eventually TT, it was resolved peacefully. He came out, but they also had identified so there's a green Pontiac there. So now all we're going to worry about is the cars. We're going to wrap this up. So now They also identified a location at 130 Turnberry. I believe that's in North County, and they got a white Jeep. And then when this news came out that Anthony Jordan got arrested, there was a gentleman from a car lot or some kind of car dealership or a car lot. He calls the investigators and says, "Hey, this Anthony Jordan's got 2 cars out here. I don't know. I don't want them." And so they go out, and out there is a black Chevy truck and a red Pontiac GTO. So with each of these cars, they sent them to the FBI, I believe, not the one that we've heard about at our ETU, but the FBI put them there for storage, and they were going to get search warrants for all the cars. So they did get those search warrants, and they later went in. So I'll go car by car here. In the red Pontiac GTO, which was from the car dealership, or I'll just call it a car dealership. They had a child protection frame on it. If you remember, they do the thing with cancer. So this child protection frame, they had a holster in the car, 50 caliber rounds, a mask, 2 black gloves. And then we'll go to the Chevy black truck that was also from the car dealership. It had a gun case, a pistol mag in the glove box, 45 ammo, ear protections used when you go to the range and shoot. They had that in there. Now we'll go to the Jeep, the white Jeep that was at 130 Turnberry. Had a pistol holster, a range target, like the human, things that you put up at the range, silhouette. Or they called it a range target. Had that in there, and a bunch of black clothing, including a black and white bandana. And then in the green Pontiac, which is the car he was seen driving in, it had the child protection frames, the same one that was on the GTO. Bunch of rubber bands, which they obviously pointed out that they're indicative of wrapping money and can be used in drug sales too. Ski mask, black gloves, ammo rounds, gun oil, speed loader, laser light for a gun, gun cleaning kit. I think more ski mask, not positive, and then eye and ear protection for when you go to the range. And then the last thing they found on the driver's floorboard under the carpet, somewhere near the gas pedal, was a cell phone. And they left it at that. So I'm guessing, just a wild guess here, that there's going to be some shit in that cell phone. But we're getting ahead of ourselves there. But that is it for this. And they're just trying to tie everything together. Pretty uneventful other than that. Tomorrow should be extremely interesting. The word on the street is that Antonio Washington might be testifying. Don't know. I didn't stick around to ask anybody. But we'll see. That should be interesting. And I'm hearing anywhere might be done by the middle of next week. I'm sure there will be some more investigators testifying, and see what happens. But that's today's update. Like, subscribe, and share. Peace. I covered all?
Yeah.